Hey, all you midlife women out there. Are you ready to step into spicy confidence? If the answer is yes, then we have some exciting news to share.
We are launching a one-on-one coaching program for midlife women who want to start showing up as the most confident version of themselves and who aren't afraid to go after what they really want.
This coaching program will help you discover your voice, embrace your desires, and develop your inner confidence so that you can truly live the authentic life you want without holding back.
There are only 3 spots available, ladies, so head to the link in the show notes and apply now. Now let's get into the episode. So we are getting right into it, right, Michelle?
Jumping right in.
Jumping right in. And we're on a topic that I think is going to be pretty interesting to a lot of ladies out there. We're talking about dating after divorce. After
Double D's.
The dating.
A different double D.
Different double D. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, could we talk about how dating after divorce is almost like going from a flip phone to a smartphone? You're familiar with, what's going on, but there's all these new features and you don't have a clue what you're supposed to do.
Or maybe like being released into the wild.
Yeah.
Right? Without a instruction manual or knowing what to do.
Well, us Gen Xers were released into the wild long before we used to meet people in the wild, or we don't do that anymore. Well, we do, but
I was going to say online dating is kind of wild.
Yeah. Well, and that's a whole nother thing we'll talk about. Actually, we'll talk about that a little bit with this too. I mean, I know you haven't had really any experience with that, but I have, and it's a very interesting topic. So.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, so, we're excited to share some of our thoughts on this topic because both of us have been through divorces after really long marriages. And I think we have a lot of key points that from our learnings along the way that we can certainly share with a lot of you. Definitely all the mistakes and the craziness and, truly learning yourself almost all over again. Part of what we're talking about with being spicy midlife women,
Well, the hurt that comes with divorce or, a relationship being blindsided, depending on what the circumstances are, the thought of opening your heart again, right, can feel pretty terrifying.
It can.
Especially if there's walls that have been built and things like that.
Well, think about it. There's like us, we were young, obviously when we met our significant others, our husbands, and there's a lot of women out there who have been with the same person for a long time. So they only know what they know. And in some people, they had never even had sex before they got married. That does still happen on occasion, or maybe it did back then. I don't know. That wasn't us, but
I was going to say,
it wasn't us, but we're just going to go with that.
It happens.
Yeah. But I do recall, going through that divorce process, and obviously you're not really in the right frame of mind to be thinking about a relationship. Divorce could be very traumatizing, not only to you, but to your family, to your kids, if you have children, or, to your environment, really. It's like learning how to do a lot of things on your own. And it's not that you can't do them. It's more that you are, I can speak for myself. I was kind of like scared going, oh my God, how am I going to do all these things on my own and eventually date? Because and the funny thing is, financial, I could totally handle myself. I was already doing it.
Yeah.
You were already doing it, right? And so the thought of dating was just like not even in the cards, with me. And I don't know how you felt about it after, going through divorce, but you really have like a lot of healing to do.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important that, and I think we're going to talk about in this episode, but it's not about finding the one.
Right.
When you think about dating after divorce, it's more about opening up yourself and really diving in and finding out who you are, because it's probably, it probably hasn't been like that. Probably hasn't been much time to focus on that. So, finding yourself and being open to the idea of love, I think that's more.
Well, and how you're going
part.
about finding the opportunities to meet people that you align with. I mean, you honestly sometimes don't even know what you're aligning with because you don't even know what your own standards or goals are. At least that's kind of what I feel.
Well, and it's different than when you were 25.
Oh my God.
Depending on the circumstance, but like for
25,
us,
30, whatever.
when we were dating and then divorced 26 years later, dating is going to be different than it was then.
Yeah.
So
And I remember thinking to myself when it was time for that, I was like, piece of cake. I got this.
Yeah.
No big deal, you know?
bullshit.
Yeah.
Right.
Total bullshit.
I know that we tell ourselves.
Yeah. But, and I was thinking, how hard could it be? How hard could it be to meet people? How hard could it be? And, I worked in a corporate environment. Obviously, I didn't date people in my corporate environment. I was married the whole time, but, and I probably wouldn't have really dated any of the people that I worked with anyway, just because not a good practice to do. But, then you'd start thinking about when it was time, where are you going to meet people? And that's where people get, women in particular, men too, but they get into this online dating thing thinking, oh my gosh, this is so easy, and that's a whole nother culture in and of itself, which we'll talk about a little bit. But it's not as black and white as you might think, because you're dealing with so many different personality types, and the way people communicate, I have found is it's staggering, the differences in how people communicate.
And you would think,
or don't.
You would think that dating, just to your point, how, we're thinking piece of cake, I got this, because we're more midlife at that point.
Right.
When we were divorced. So you have more wisdom, more clarity.
But you're also maybe a little bit more
life
naive,
experience.
though. You do have,
and at the same time, I
yeah.
know, but I'm just saying that's probably why we think that, is because, we are older. We've been through so much. We have so much more experience and wisdom. We got this piece of cake.
Yeah.
And then
But the experience and the wisdom that you've been able to achieve has nothing to do with how you're really interacting with someone on a romantic level.
Well, and I think too, being older and having more wisdom and more life experiences, it's much different than we were younger. When we're younger, we're dating for, with more hope.
Right.
Hope and potential.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at this point in life, the potential part is still there, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know.
Well, I think too, if you've come out of a relationship where your heart has been hurt, let's say you've been, there's infidelity, or there's, a lack of trust, there's been cheating, there has been dishonesty. It is something that you have to really give yourself time to figure out and manage how to maneuver through, because you start protecting.
I was going to say the mindset of protection is going to be there for sure.
Well, and in all fairness, it's like you could potentially be bringing some of those concerns that you had with your previous partner to your potential new partner, and that person doesn't deserve that.
Right.
But if there's little inklings of things that they're doing that are kind of raising those flags for you, going, holy shit, this is really feeling similar. You kind of feel like, oh, I can navigate through that, or, oh, I can figure that out. And then the more you kind of like somebody, the more you're kind of starting to be intrigued by them. You might start ignoring some of those things, or going, maybe I'm overreacting, or you basically gaslight yourself, and that's all part of the process too, because you're trying to figure out what your boundaries are with some of those things, what the standards are, and you're learning about things like ghosting. And about people automatically assuming that you are, you're going to sleep with them. That's a huge one. And, there's a lot of women that do, it's like we've been in those places where, I think in one episode you had said, oh, I've had escapades. I loved how you use the word escapades. I'm like, I have had shenanigans. I've had a lot of shenanigans because I've chosen to have shenanigans and escapades. Yeah. But here's the deal. I didn't really go into the dating scene when I went into it with the idea that I was going to have escapades. It was more like my picker was totally off. Like I was picking people that, obviously you're choosing people, if you're doing an online type of thing, by their looks, right? That's the first thing you're seeing. You haven't talked to them. You don't know anything about them, their family, their history, their finances, their criminal record. You don't know any of this shit, right? So you're really basing a lot of your perceptions and things off of the conversations that you're having with them. And frankly, people lie a lot.
Yeah.
And they do what they can. Women and men both do this to really get someone to like them, or be intrigued by them, or what have you. And I've learned that the people that I had become more attracted to were really emotionally unavailable people. And so, I was married to someone who's emotionally unavailable.
And you're, from what I have seen with you, you are really able. I know your picker was off, just like you were talking about, but at the same time, you've really been able to navigate well through things like that and recognize, I think too, because we don't want to make the same mistakes.
No, you're afraid. You're terrified you're going to make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
And you think it's going to be different with someone else. That's come more with time.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I was talking to this gal. She's a midlife woman as well. Very successful, attractive, well put together woman. And she's experiencing the same things, that we've been talking about today. And she was funny because she even said, my picker's, kind of been off. And, the people that she was choosing maybe for the wrong reasons. And so you would see that the same patterns of things were happening over and over again.
Yeah.
And it was more, I kind of identify with this, is you look at something as a challenge. When you're dealing with people that are emotionally unavailable, you think of it as a challenge, and that's not the best approach, because you're going to be disappointed. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be disappointed. You can't change in how this person is, even though you're really attracted to them, even though you vibe well, even though you get along. I'm talking about someone in particular that Michelle knows about, that, that I liked this person, but he just was not going to be, he is not emotionally available. And I came to the determination that, you know what, I just need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a hard realization on my part, because I was like, God damn it, this guy is so dumb. What's wrong with him? But you know what? He's going to be dumb and alone. So, and, still, do his thing. But that's, I think, how he's going to live the rest of his life. You can kind of see that now. We're friends and everything, but you can see it. Yeah. More power to him. That's the way he's going to live his life. And I'm totally fine with that. But that's not a person who's necessarily looking for a long-term relationship, And I have not wanted to be in a long-term relationship before, because I was just wanting to have fun.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things after divorce you're trying to figure out, because you might crave being in a relationship where, you kind of have this idealistic view on what it's supposed to look like. You see this shit all over Instagram. You see it on TikTok about how wonderful these, this is what I'm looking for, and someone who does this and someone who does that, and, who pays attention or whatever, And it's like, I'm sorry, nobody's like that all the time, so you've got to take the good with the bad. And you have to also understand that you're not always perfect either. You're not bringing perfection to anything.
Right.
And you might not be someone's cup of tea, and that's okay,
Yeah.
But it's trying to figure that out without getting your heart crushed along the way,
I mean, I think being cautious, isn't, well, and I think we tend to build that fortress around our
100%,
right?
Yeah.
Especially after, the things you go through with divorce, which is a magnitude of, a bunch of different things for everybody. But what would you say shocked you the most about modern dating, if you will? Because it is so different from when we were like dating before we were married.
I was just thinking it wasn't going to be any big deal. It was like,
I was
people, I'm pretty social. Oh my God, no, it wasn't anything like that. And then I also, and this is a very shallow thing I'm going to like share and like totally tell myself on, is like when you're looking at things from the outside perspective, like the things that I'd be attracted to, those people were not necessarily people that were going to be people that I was going to be like long-term looking at. They were just pretty, And I had no intention of having a relationship necessarily beyond just like having fun. And so I realized that because, it's easier in all fairness to kind of approach things maybe that way so you don't get hurt. So that's kind of a protective way of maybe looking at things and how you're choosing people and, all those sorts of things. So
I think for me, like a few of the things, when we use the word modern, that's just like dating now as opposed to 40 years ago when we were dating. But there's so many different dynamics that go into dating now.
Yeah.
With the text messaging. Right? The dating apps. There's
the tone. You can't tell tone and text messaging.
But there's so much more understanding or information, I guess is a better word, around like the whole situationship relationships.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it already, ghosting. That, like, who knew what?
Like, I had no idea what an FWB was. I remember this girl was telling me this. It's the FWB. I'm like, what's that? Friends with benefits. I'm like, what's that? What's that? Let's talk about that,
Yeah.
But it's a very common term. Now it's kind of called situationship, friends with benefits, whatever, it's kind of the same thing. But, these are, as a woman, it's like you can make a choice to be in those types of situations on your own terms if you want. If you're not interested in anything that is long term, or where you're, getting deep with somebody, it works well to meet your needs, right? And you can be friends with these people. That's why they call it friends with benefits. But these aren't people you're probably hanging out with.
Right.
It's just more, having fun. Exactly. And so when
Friends with bennies.
Huh?
Friends with the bennies.
Friends with the bennies. Exactly. But there's different layers to that too. I mean, if you have a friend with benefits, do they have benefits with other people too? And then,
of course.
But see, that's the thing where I would be like, it kind of grosses me out to think about them like sleeping with other people. And I know you're protected and all that stuff, but it kind of like gave me the creeps a little bit. Just made me feel like, ew. And it's not like I'm saying, oh, I'm not special enough to be their only friends with benefits. But that's not it at all. It was just more kind of like, it's a casual thing, right?
Right.
So obviously with a casual thing, you're going to be casual, but I would never, and that's just me.
Yeah.
I would never be going out and having multiple people that I was sleeping with. I just wouldn't. I just think that would be weird for me, you know? But I mean, men different sometimes.
I think right there in with what you're saying, there's so many aspects to this topic. Could be so much information, but, to what you're saying, there's, communication is huge when you're navigating some of these waters when it comes to dating. So let's talk about some tips, maybe just a few tips in regard to this. First one being, the reasons you're dating, doing it from, a level of curiosity as opposed to desperation,
right?
I think would be one.
And I see that there's definitely, and I've seen this with women, but more, I would say, with men, where, they automatically are back, like they're on the dating apps. It's like they just broke up with their girlfriend or their wife or whatever, or they're even just separated.
Yeah.
And they're on dating apps and they're meeting other people. And it's like they haven't done any of the evaluation or work on what got them to that place to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, I think women are like that too.
Yeah. I mean, but maybe not. I mean, just from my experience, it wasn't like something where I went immediately into those things, because
and I would have to say that is definitely, a point here in regard to dating, and not doing it out of desperation, really, because that does seem a bit desperate when you do that, jumping right back into after, maybe, toying around with one relationship and just continually diving back in and continually diving back in and continually diving back in, right?
Call it like a serial monogamist.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that before, where they are relationship people.
Yeah.
And I think, so in trying to understand it, it's like, people that are relationship people, they just don't like do well on their own.
I think we put too much pressure on ourselves. If you're, just like, go about it from a place of information, right? The goal is information and finding things out about somebody. And I think some of the red flags, if you are dating, intentionally think about some of these things when it comes to desperation, like Julie was talking about already, like ignoring red flags.
Yeah.
If you start ignoring red flags, that's kind of, pushing it to the side, and that can be a sign of dating from desperation.
So have you run across any red flags before you were in a relationship that, just that you now are red flags?
Say that again?
Like there's red flags I didn't know they were red flags before, and now I know it's a red flag.
Well, and I think that's part of the dating process, is recognizing and understanding, because a red flag for one person might not be a red flag for somebody else. We all have different
it depends
levels
on what your standards are.
Yeah, we all have different levels of acceptance, life experiences, and so it's going to look really different. But in general, whatever the red flags are, you have to identify those based on your situation, based on the things that you've gone through, based on the things that you will, accept or not accept.
Right.
And if you are accepting things that you don't want to accept, there you go. That's a red flag.
Yeah. Well, you're performing the red flag.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
yeah.
And
But some of that too is kind of learning. It's like, are you giving someone the benefit of the doubt? Are you making excuses for them?
Right.
Are you feeling like, gosh, maybe I'm being overbearing? I mean, literally, it's like you start really second guessing yourself if you feel like you're being too rigid with the things that you're focusing on. But I've come to learn that those things are in place to protect you, and not in a way to where your heart's completely protected and you can't have, a relationship with someone. But it's like you're seeing these things and it's like, thank you, next. It's like, because I'm telling you, it's like there's way more of that out there than there is not. Finding that needle in a haystack person it's very difficult, I think, to find someone who you completely connect with. I mean, nobody's going to be 100% connected on every single level. That's kind of what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
But when it's things about like consistency with their behavior, consistency with their communication, a lot of it, is related to texting as an example. You know, if you're feeling some kind of way about it, then you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But then you have to kind of look back and say, okay, where am I with this person? Have I even spent any time with them? Have I been out for a cup of coffee? And it's like, I don't have expectations of them in any capacity because they don't know me shit. I don't know them anything. They don't know me anything. And so if you kind of keep it on that level, then it's easy to see. It's easier, I should say, to see kind of the bigger picture.
Well, I think and if you truly are, dating and having a curiosity aspect to it,
right?
You're asking, after you've been out with somebody, ask yourself some questions.
Yeah.
Or were you asking questions while you were out on the date? Were you staying present while you were with that person?
Sometimes people feel like they're getting interviewed.
Yeah.
So it's like
the question asking. Yeah.
Question asking things. Yeah. That it almost feels like kind of like a formal interview or what have you. It just feels funny.
Well, you have to let it unfold naturally.
Yeah.
I think that's super important.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like.
But you can tell what's really important to somebody by the questions they're asking too.
Yeah.
If do you have children? Do you want to have children? Do you, what kind of work do you do? That's a big one that, I know a lot of
those questions like on a first date.
I think it just depends on the interaction.
Yeah. And the unfolding naturally.
Right. If I'm seeing somebody or potentially seeing, so here's a great example, seeing somebody who wants to have children, then I'm not going to see that person anymore because I'm not going to have any more kids unless they want my kids, in which case they're not really kids
there's
anymore.
a lot to consider.
Yeah.
So not only the question asking while you're on the date from a curiosity perspective, but also asking yourself questions after the date. How did I feel when I was with that person? Did I feel comfortable? Did I enjoy
I've been to different dates before and you're like, how did it go? And I'm like, well, he's nice. And she gives me the look.
Were you being yourself? Were you being yourself while you were with the person? Things like that. And do you want to see him again? Am I looking forward to another date?
It's a chemistry thing with me.
Yeah.
And
you can't force that.
Yeah. Which is something that could really get you in trouble though too. Because if that's all you're basing things on, I mean, obviously you have to have chemistry with the person, but chemistry fades over time. You have a connection with them that you build. It's kind of like developing a foundation, if this person is someone you want to invest in and spend time with. But I've found that asking yourself some of these questions and going, would I be interested in seeing that person again? Yeah, I kind of want to get to know them a little bit better, especially if you see that they're making an effort to, have a nice time or to choose the place and they're on time and they're, they dress nice for whatever it is that you're doing. They're making an effort, I have a lot of appreciation, I guess you could say, for men that are like that. And then there's plenty that are not like that, or they're rolling in, haven't taken a shower. I'm just like, dude, seriously, you just like, I'm done. Or like, I remember going one time and the guy was actually nice. I was on time. He was late and I was okay with it because he messaged me to let me know. The guy was 30 minutes late and I was pissed. At that point, I'm just like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore because it's not very respectful of your time. For whatever reason that this person was late and I left and he was really upset that I left and was like, you could have waited. And I'm like, no, I'm not waiting no. You haven't even met me yet. This is not a great first impression. So is that Is that me being ridiculous? No, I don't think so. I'm a busy person and wasn't meant to be,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, and I think too, that's a great example as wrapping up this first thing we're talking about as far as curiosity, dating from that perspective and not desperation. I think the point of all of that is to, your job isn't to really impress them.
Right.
It's more to assess.
Yeah.
So not
Assess
to impress, but to
and
assess.
being yourself, you know?
And that's what I mean. Just like be yourself. Don't go out of your way to try to impress.
Right.
Just be who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and then assess who they are through some of those things.
Like how open they are with their things they're talking to you about, or um, you don't really get into a lot of the deep stuff, I don't think right away, at least I don't, because I
Yeah.
feel like you really want to see if you vibe with that person. But, you run across people that are love bombing you. They're just like, the love bombing thing is frightening in a lot of
Mhm.
respects because it seems really great on the outside, but give it 4 or 5 months and it's like they're a different person
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
I can remember a friend of ours dating this one guy, good looking guy, and he was well put together and the whole bit. He sent her, before they'd even met, over 50 pictures, like just bombing her, bombing her, bombing her with these pictures. And then calling her and you know, um, doing FaceTime videos, but he's walking around doing other things. It just was just ew,
Yeah.
the whole thing. She did not last long with that one. I think she maybe went out with him once or twice and that was it.
Mhm.
But clearly this person had a very different interpretation on what was okay to do.
Yeah.
And the love bomb, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Literally all at once, bam, bam. You might as well just send him the folder, like an access to one of your folders on your phone or something. Just probably had them all set up in a folder, that you
Love
could
bomb.
sending to different women. Um, anyway, so let's talk about the next tip: keeping your life while you're building a relationship, if that's what you're choosing to do.
Mhm.
I think, especially right after divorce, the most important thing you can do is take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Not just physically by, getting the food you need, getting the exercise you need, sleep and all that, that kind of stuff, but emotionally taking care of yourself too, because you've been through something, whether it was amicable or not, that there's a lot of things to process and unpack. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to a therapist to do it, but there's root causes of a lot of the shit that's happened, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always the other person's complete problem.
Mm.
There's reasons why things, and I guess we have a tendency sometimes not to take ownership of the things that maybe brought us to the point of the divorce. There's two that play this game, right? Where there's two of us that takes two to tango. So you got to understand what your commitment to that is,
Yeah.
and it took me a while to figure a lot of that stuff out. I certainly wasn't perfect, but I was big. I mean, I was such a whiner really about a lot of it. I was
Yeah.
just like, all I could really focus on was everything that was making me so unhappy, not really what I was contributing to making it unhappy,
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's important to really evaluate those things. And then,
Well, I think because too, we spend so many years, in our case
Yeah.
anyways, because we were married for 26 years, taking care of other people, taking care of the family, taking care of everybody else, and
Yeah.
trying to balance it all, losing ourselves in that. So, fast forward, we go through all the shit. Now we're divorced. We're diving into dating. And maybe you have somebody that's giving you all this time and attention.
yeah.
And, it would be easy to just move right on into that and, let yourself be showered by something like that. But you really have to be careful with that. And I think to Julie's point, I agree. It is so important to focus on yourself and give yourself time before
Mm-hmm.
moving into something like that. You can date, of course, sure, whatever you want to do. But if you're doing it, just keep your life
Yeah.
while you're doing that and make sure to make yourself a priority. That's
Huge.
my point on.
Yeah. And I did that. I mean, it was a
Mhm.
good 6 months later, but I jumped into a long-term relationship. I mean, a lot of it had to do with I'd been in a marriage, but I really was kind of like not in a relationship, if you know what I mean. It's like I was
Mhm.
married, but I was kind of single. I was doing most everything on my own. And so jumping into that was kind of like being in a relationship. We were
Yeah.
doing stuff together. We were
Yeah.
having fun. We were doing, whatever. But I was so naive. I was so naive. And I remember him saying, he's like, "Are you sure you don't want to date?" Probably because he was cheating. That was a whole nother story. But it's like, he was, "You sure you don't want to like date people?" And I'm like, "No, I really had no desire to be dating other people." It's like, not really understanding or knowing what that meant.
Yeah.
But I would say with the schedules and the dating and stuff after you get divorced, don't be that girl that drops your friends when they meet somebody, because that is so not cool. And I mean, I know there's women out there that do that, and we all kind of appreciate the fact that, they're happy and they're in this relationship, but it's like your friends have to take some priority too, or the people that are important in your life, friends, family, whatever.
Well, I just think it's everything. If you start dating somebody and, they really should be supporting your life and not replacing things, not replacing your fitness routines, whatever those are not replacing your friends, not replacing your family and the activities, that you did with those things, the personal growth that you're trying to focus on, all those things that are so important after divorce.
Yes.
If you're dating, if you are, in a relationship and exploring those waters, a healthy person will support those things.
Yeah.
And not try to replace them.
And it's not to say that maybe you didn't do anything with your spouse, for the last few years, and now you're doing everything with this other person. You have to have your own identity.
Yeah.
You have to identify what works for you.
Well, they should add to your life.
Exactly.
They should add to whatever it is you got going on and not become all of it, if that makes sense,
Yeah, I think as you kind of move through the healing process on divorce as well, you'll start to learn that you're going to trust your instincts a little bit more, and you're going to be okay with some of the things that you used to say yes to, saying no to.
Yeah.
Whatever those
just like
things
anything
might be. Yeah.
And
I think it's really important to know that. I have actually, and I really haven't dated very much in the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, very purposefully on my part, because I have been, and I've used this word, much more intentional with what I'm doing and the people that I'm choosing to spend time with. Because I've had my fun, and I could still have fun, whatever, but really that's not where my direction is going to go in the future. If I'm going to invest time in somebody, I want it to be meaningful and fun, obviously, at the same time, but I want it to be aligned with where I feel like my life is headed.
Yeah.
And not saying that I want my life to be, enveloped into someone else's, but if it's meant to be, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I look at it. And so when you're dating intentionally, you're really not dating every other week. At least for me, it's like I'm not like going out with people constantly.
And I think confidence really comes from that.
Yeah.
Having the confidence to trust yourself with, those decisions and how you're spending your time, the people you're spending them with, all of those things. I think it's important to realize that with dating at this point, especially after divorce, there's a mindset shift that is, I think, necessary. And, we have to stop asking questions like, what if this doesn't work out? What if they cheat on me? What if they,
you're operating from a position of insecurity.
Well, you don't want to get hurt again. Too.
Right. That's
There's
why.
all of those things.
Yeah.
So
the flip side of that is asking yourself all those questions, or getting into a position where you think it could potentially happen and then bailing. And that's another,
right.
Kind of way to approach it, which is not healthy really either.
But think about, and this is the third tip we didn't point out specifically, but it's trusting yourself more than trusting what the outcome is with the dating. And, all those fear factors that we just talked about, try replacing those with, the things that you have done. You survived the divorce. Yeah. Right? You survived the heartbreak. You survived disappointment. You are probably finding that you're stronger than you ever thought you would be or could be, or ever thought you would have to be. Right? That's how it was for me.
And you can take a lot of that stuff that you're learning and you can take it into your future. Your trajectory is much brighter. When you start thinking of yourself being your foundation, and then, if you're adding to that by dating, then great, or by being in a relationship, great. But it's like, if that person is detracting from where you feel like you need to be or where your happiness lies, it's such a precious thing, because when you're getting out of divorce, you're not happy. Typically, you're not getting divorced and being happy, right? You're probably feeling some relief to some degree, but there's so many things that go along with it that are just aftermaths of divorce. Usually it's not like divorce, give them a hug, see ya. It's not like that. You know, you've got children you're dealing with. You've got finances. Those are always huge that you've got to deal with.
There's no guarantee you won't get hurt again.
No.
There is no guarantee that you won't get hurt again. And I think the goal and the important thing to remember is that you will be okay even if you do. Even if you do, you'll be okay because of all the things that we just talked about that you have, you know, gone through and made it through already, right? So
let me ask you a couple questions here. So it's like going through the whole dating thing, if you're thinking about it. Would you rather get ghosted or receive brutal honesty from somebody?
Receive brutal honesty.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't like it.
I mean, they could still be kind about it.
That's what I would want.
But I mean, I've said that to people.
Because you're left to wonder too many things.
Well, I know. It's like, did I? And then you do start asking questions. It's like, okay, what the heck happened? You know? And I'm always curious about things like that, but they do happen. But I think that as really strong women, you know, it's like maybe another approach would be, you know, you just say, hey, you know what? I really enjoyed spending time with you, but I just don't feel the vibe, you know, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
It's much easier, I think, to kind of
just be out with it.
Yeah. It's not like you're trying to be unkind or anything.
Right.
You just don't want to waste somebody's time.
There's no question marks, no blank pages, nothing left to wonder. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And say, Lovey, there you go.
Coffee date or dinner date?
Dinner date.
Really? See, I would prefer to go to coffee first.
Yeah. No, dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess coffee is kind of like, you know, the appetizer of dating.
Yeah.
If you could compare, but
you know, it's all about how much time you're spending, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any others here? Let's see.
Let me ask you one.
Okay.
Younger man or older man?
I think it depends on the man.
That
if he's
wasn't
an
a
older
choice.
man with a youthful, you know, disposition, then I'd probably be fine with it. But I probably would end up going younger, honestly.
Okay, what about this? Texting all day or phone calls?
Oh, God, I'd rather text and then just like have a phone call.
Yeah.
It's so funny. By the time I get home, I'm just like, this is my time. You know, I don't want to be spending all my time. And that's the thing. It's like if it was someone that I was really wanting to spend time with, then maybe I wouldn't feel that way.
We're Marco Polo people.
Yeah.
Also, if you've never heard of the Marco Polo app, it's like a really great video chat.
It's a Gen X app.
Yeah, it's for old people, but I find it. I'm in a long distance relationship, have been for 10 years, and it's been a game changer for us.
It's like video texting.
Yeah, it's video texting, but you can see the facial expressions, you can hear the tone of voice, so there's really no guessing with what you're.
I love Marco Polo. Yeah. Jill and I use it all the time.
Yeah,
too.
little side note there. What about this dating app or being set up by friends?
Depends on the friend. Because I mean, I have one friend, Mary, who's always trying to. And I'm just looking at her going, why in the world
that is
would
true.
you think?
Probably not the best question for you.
Yeah. Why in the world would you think, knowing me, that would be something that,
so
I mean, no, you know. So there's nobody I even know that I would allow to set me up with anybody.
Have you been on a blind date since you've been dating? Like
I don't
post-divorce?
think so. I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever been on a blind date ever in my entire life.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. Anyways, what would you say the biggest red flag is?
That's a good one. I would say lack of consistency. Yeah, and just lack of consistency. No effort. It's just like
and there's a lot of things that could surround that in so many different areas.
So I mean, how many excuses are you going to make?
That's what I mean. Overarching. I think those cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Lack of consistency.
I mean, I think there's definitely people that have things. Life happens, right?
Yeah.
So if something happens, then, you know, you got to give people a little bit of grace sometimes, but it takes 2 seconds to send a text message and say, hey, something's come up. Can we reschedule for later this week or something like that instead of just not doing anything? Yeah. I will not even entertain shit like that. That's just bullshit. And a lot of, like we were saying before, you know, I don't really have expectations when I'm dating, right? Because my expectations are mine. They're not that person's. And so I think it's more about your standards, like the things that are important to you. And if these people don't exhibit those things that are important to you, then they probably aren't the right people for you.
And you don't have to like be this free spirit overnight.
Yeah.
Right. Give yourself some grace. Open your heart, but like Julie said, keep your standards. I think that's super important.
And it takes a while to figure that out. And we all say, oh, I know what my standards are.
Easy say. It's easy to say that.
Way easier to say. So anyway, this was like a good conversation about this.
This was a good conversation, a little bit longer of an episode than we're typically doing. So
much.
A lot into it.
Yeah, there's so much around this topic for women, midlife women who are wanting to be spicy, women who are trying to figure out their place in life and what brings them joy in terms of relationships. So we hope this has been a positive, listen
and this
for
is
you.
Definitely something that women out there, we have a one-on-one coaching program that we offer, and we're currently taking clients. The link to find out more information is in all the bios on our socials. And dating post-divorce and is part of being a confident, spicy midlife woman and stepping into the confidence at that time in life. So if it's something you feel like you need help with, this is definitely something we can do in our coaching program, because we tailor the needs to what it is you are wanting in midlife in regard to confidence. We tailor the program to you.
Right.
So based on, information that we get. So definitely go check it out. It's stepping into spicy confidence, and we love being able to do this with women. So definitely check it out. We're on all the socials.
You don't have to be divorced to be a spicy midlife woman.
That's right. I'm just saying this is something that we could tailor to you if this is something that you're struggling with. But we're out on all the socials, so go check it out. Link is in the bio. You can see the merch that we have, as well as the coaching program. And if you head on over to YouTube, you can subscribe and watch us by video and in person.
So until next week.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh, there's sun shining in my face here.
Stay spicy.
Stay spicy. Bye, ladies.